Hello, YouTube. How are you? Apropos of nothing, there's a guy on, I think he's on Facebook making the rounds. I don't know if you've seen him. He's um, just spectacularly bone dry funny, and I don't even know his name. I don't know if you've seen him. But it's a comedian from Iceland, and he just talks about here in Iceland, and there's just all kinds of non sequiturs, and I just really like the guy. He's brand new. Um, Settle Cougar says, "Howdy, Bill. I have a question just for later. What's the most convenient time to send it to you? How about right after we close out? How's that sound?" He's actually that's what's so. Dave Big Boutte says, "Yes, the Syrian comedy of Iceland. That's actually his shtick. That really works. I think he's very refreshing and kind of wholesome, and you know, pretty pretty cool that way." Hang on a second while I just tee this up here. View your channel. Oh, I gotta remember to turn off the Fargan um, ads. So while I'm doing this, while I am in the process of demonetizing myself, um, uh, I saw little clips of the clips from the Tucker Carlson Nick Fuentes interview, and there's one guy who does just a perfect spot on impression of both of them, and those guys have much bigger audiences than me, but I wouldn't trade places with either of those guys for anything in the whole wide world. I thought about that quite a lot lately, actually. I would really much rather have a much smaller number of uh, top quality people than a large number of lunatics and psychopaths. Um, so, yeah, it was really interesting. I got to tell you, even I don't have a lot of uh, respect for Nick Fuentes, but even I did not expect the Stalin's birthday kind of thing. Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of Joseph Stalin. So a big fan of Joseph Stalin, a big fan of Adolf Hitler, two of the not just the most evil men in the world, two of the most authoritarian socialists in the world. The head of the National Socialist German Workers' Party and the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, and this guy is telling us he gets to say who's an American and who's not. You know, get out of America. You're not American. It's like, dude, you are backing the two biggest mass murderers and left wingers ever. And we all know no, Hitler is a right wing. No, they were both socialists, both collectivists, they're both big state um, uh, totalitarians, and he loves them both. He thinks they're swell. I just don't know how he calls himself a conservative. And the same goes for Tucker, and the same goes for Candace. I'm trying to think if that's the limit of the contagion. I think Mark Dice is probably right on the border there too. But you know, I really, really um, can't believe that that they've got the nerve to call themselves, conservatives. And it's especially funny watching, um, not so much Nick, but of the four, I am far fonder of Mark Dice than the other three. Um, but but of the three, Candace Tucker and Nick Fuentes, uh, I just, especially Candace, it is so transparently obvious to anybody. I think that at least I don't know. Maybe it's just me, um, but but she just seems to be so obviously gunning for leadership of TPUSA. I think the second that he got shot, that Charlie got shot, I think Candace Owens just sat up and said, "There's a $70 million company out there that's looking for a new charismatic leader." Um, Yeah, I actually I don't think Alex Jones is as bad as those other ones. To be honest with you, I really don't. I don't. Alex Jones has always been kind of nuts, but as many people say, Alex Jones, well, as I say anyway, Alex Jones is wrong 4 out of 5 times. But the one time he's right ahead of everybody by 20 years. And and everybody's just they're just like circling this. It's like buzzards circling a carcass out in the desert. Um, and I don't know, man. I am not. I'm not impressed, and I'm not. I mean, I just think you just take them apart easily. Fuentes despised Charlie Kirk and spoke ill of his wife in the aftermath of his death. Yes, he sure enough did. Uh, and um, and I don't know what really the Fuentes thing. I don't know. I think they all went off their rockers. But as for me, I'm firmly planted here on my rocker. Thanks mostly to you guys, to be honest with you. Um, well, partially anyway. Um my beautiful wife Natasha keeps me from going too far off the rails. Uh, I in turn help her nudge. I help nudge her towards the edge of the rails. Um, Eric says if Candace was looking for TPA USA leadership, she's done a very bad job of it, essentially accusing Erica of being involved in the murder of her own husband. Look, Candace Owens was already excluded from TPA USA. If she hadn't been, she would have been invited to the memorial service. Um, so, what I think Candace is doing is trying to foment a kind of a revolution. I really think she's going to be uh, voted in. I think she thinks she's going to be voted in by by voice vote. Richard Dark says, I regard Candace as a true believer. She's wrong, but she's not dishonest. See, I completely disagree with you. I think she is 100% grift. 100% grift. Absolutely knows what she's doing, and keeps finding a way to ratchet it up to keep on the bubble of explosive new reveals. I defy Kash Patel to come on and deny that this Egyptian plane that took off from Utah or whatever wasn't a part of the operation. And it's like Kash Patel's not answering because Kash Patel has to run the FBI. One of the things that's so terrible about this is and this is kind of what I kind of just want to come back to. See, the thing that's so terrible about all this, Woody Fool says Candace was so right about George Floyd. Maybe a stock clock? No, she used to be right about most things. But I just don't think she ever really fully got the. I don't think that this kind of conservatism came from a place of deep understanding for any of these three. Um, and I think the same was true of Milo Yiannopoulos. I was really at the peak of my public speaking career when Milo broke and was like the next big thing. And I got to go to a lot of events where people have been doing this and doing it well for a long time. We're getting like on the edge of the panel, and Milo's got his own featured speaking events. And listen, I don't want to sound like a crybaby about it. I fully understand and get completely that it's the job of the folks putting on the seminar to put the most popular people up in front stage. I'm not complaining about any of the sidelining thing. What I'm saying is, I never really thought that Milo Yiannopoulos really understood anything about it because I think he was just surfing the popularity wave of being a flamboyantly gay conservative, and I think the same thing was true for Candace. See, so to me, it's like there's a huge difference between Candace Owens and come on, let's just think. Well, let's go right to the obvious one, like Zoe Rachel. Zoe frickin' gets every brick of it. He built his Zoe built his belief system and his commentary on the shock changes that happened to him when he suddenly found a real manly stepfather in his life who was a conservative, and Zoe gets the foundations. And I think if you get the foundations, what comes out of the top is usually pretty sound. But a lot of these people just strike me. Copy Shinada says kind of like shock jocks. Yeah, of cultural commentary. I really kind of get that feeling. Mary says, can we at least be honest about the fact that we're speculating as to these people's motives? We're just guessing. None of us actually know. I actually do know. And I only know about one of them. And I can't tell you who I heard it from, but I do know for an absolute certain fact that one of these people just flat out and said, I'll just say whatever whatever needs to be said so that I can get rich and famous and powerful. So the motive doesn't even really matter. If you change your core beliefs and don't announce that you're changing your core beliefs, but just kind of pretend like you always believe these things. I don't know. Look, and by the way, I really like Milo. I thought he was fun. I thought when he was on, when he was on fire, I just thought he was fun. And Candace was a real force with Blexit and all this stuff. And then Tucker Carlson was kind of a bow-tied kind of a dork. Remember when Jon Stewart just took him apart, and then all of a sudden he comes back and he has those years at Fox where he's like just on fire and he's just really telling it like it is during I never accused Candace of being gay. I was talking about I know we're joking. I was talking about Milo, who I believe is gay, and then I just think that I think that what they found was that that there was a niche. I think they realized that there was a niche, and the niche was to appeal to the most, let's just say fervent elements of the right, and just kind of tweak their message so that they had a smaller number of highly motivated and dedicated individuals, because you cannot talk people out of Candace Owens if you're a real Candace Owens fan. I was talking about this the other night when I was down. I was pitching the Colony thing. I mentioned it on the Tuesday night show because I was busy Monday. And I said, I think the cause of this is that we have all been raised, people my age and younger, and everybody is younger now, have grown up our entire lives on movies that have a twist in it. And there's a reversal. I've talked about this before, but I never got it quite so clear as I did when I was having that discussion on Monday night. What I think has happened is, and the moon landing is evidence of this, and the whole Charlie conspiracy thing evidence of this. And people were talking about, well, why is there all this speculation about who really killed Charlie? And I said, in the movies you're set up, every movie that deals with any kind of an action picture, or especially a mystery picture or something, the job of the writer is to stay a couple steps ahead of the audience and make sure that the audience is following him, and he's supposed to lead you to the most likely suspect, and the audience needs to figure it out, right? Some people in Hollywood who don't understand anything about this business say that audiences are stupid. It's like, no, they're just the opposite. I'd love to take credit for this particular intellectual beat, but I heard it from somebody, I just don't remember who. But somebody who was a writer said, no, audiences are brilliant. An audience will have it figured out in 10 minutes. If you're not very, very good at it, it will be immediately obvious what's going on. So what happens is, in a mystery, the job of a good writer is to lead an audience to think that I am smart enough to figure out the clues in this movie, and I am going to predict who the villain really is. So far, so good. Traditional mysteries have worked that way. All of the Agatha Christie stories work this way. The Butler did it, is a perfect example. That people have heard the expression, but don't really know what it means. In high society England in the 1930s and 40s, when you would have a list of suspects, there would be all of the Duchess of this and the Earl of that and the Duke of this and all of these people in the room. And who committed the murder? Well, it turns out it was the butler. Why were they so shocked? It's because butlers aren't real people. Butlers don't have agency. Butlers are just props. They're part of they come with the estate. So that was kind of a step. But here's my point, right? What I said during this dinner discussion about the cause of this kind of madness is the more evidence that something is true, the less it is believed. The more evidence that there is for something, the less people believe it, because they feel like I am being led to this obvious conclusion, but the obvious conclusion can't possibly be right because where's the twist? And people think that life functions that way. Where's the twist? Well, there is no twist. Well, what do you mean there's no twist? We're set up to believe that this skinny loner in a white T-shirt shot a president of the United States from the fifth floor or fourth floor, whatever it was, of the Texas School Book Depository, and he got him with a bolt-action rifle. I mean, that's the patsy who really did it. He did it. Yes, but he can't have done it. Lee Harvey Oswald can't have done it because all of the evidence points to him. See how that works? That's really what I'm trying to get at here. All of the evidence points to him, so he can't be the guy who did it, because in a movie, that would be bad business. No one would be interested in that. You can't sell a mystery movie or an action movie if it turns out that the person that all of the evidence points to actually was the villain, because what would be the fun of that? The fun of a movie, the fun of a mystery movie is the twist, right? Is oh no, he sees dead people. Oh. And then you go back and see the whole thing, right? And it's like, oh. So it's really, yes, Woody Fool's got it. The more evidence, the less we believe. It sounds like release the Epstein files, but they don't show anything. Could be because there's nothing in the Epstein files. I'm not saying there isn't, but I'm saying that is a possible explanation. And I'm beginning to think it's probably the most likely explanation. Just that there's no smoking gun there, I'm quite sure there's going to be a new 9/11 commission. Listen, I'm happy to have a new 9/11 commission. If you want to have a new Kennedy assassination commission, I'm fine with that. I'm not saying, oh, we need to keep this buried. I just think they're going to find out what they found out the first time, which is, no, it's exactly what it looked like. 9/11 was 19 Muslim fanatics, terrorists, trained by Al-Qaeda in the country for months, training how to fly, not to take off, not to land, just to fly and cruise. And they flew it into the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and would have flown it into the Capitol, but Flight 93 basically, got done with it. Yeah, that's the simplest explanation. And it's the most obvious explanation. That's why it cannot be true. Now, the part I was trying to say earlier is the real tragedy here is that is 2020. 2020 was just broke. It just broke the citizenry, because in 2020 we had 2 cases of us being lied to on the highest levels, and things where actually, hundreds of thousands of people actually did die because of government cover-up or corruption, whatever the case may be. One of them was the 2020 election, the other was COVID. And so people say, well, there's your evidence. It's like, well, yes, it's evidence for, it's evidence for those 2 cases, but it doesn't mean it's automatic. And this is why people believe every conspiracy now, because that's it. Eric's got a great point here. In fact, this would be an interesting take on it. Be an interesting take on a short film or something. So Eric says, ironically, finding out that Oswald is the killer has become the twist. Yes, that's kind of a cool way to handle it, actually. Kind of a cool way to handle it. And he was talking about Stephen King being a great writer. Stephen King is a fantastic writer. He's an absolutely astonishingly good writer. He's one of the most prolific writers, and not just prolific. It's not like Spinal Tap is the loudest band in rock and roll history. He's one of the best writers that ever lived. He's he's earned his success. He's a great writer. He's a fantastic writer. And he knows how to tell a story. So Woody Fool says, the boy who cried wolf, how the government responded to COVID, never again. Yes, but my point is, what happens if the next time it turns out that it is as bad as they told us COVID was? I'm still not masking up. We learned some actual science during that too. So anyway, well, thank you very much. At Redham 4250 says 2020 just broke the citizenry. That's one of the most important sentences ever spoken. But it did. It broke the American people. And this is why guys like Tucker and Candace and Fuentes and all of this, it's not anti-Semitism, it's just Jew hatred. It's like we have to have something that we can believe is true. You have to have something that we know in our hearts is true. And this one has, the idea that Jews are running everything has, there's some evidence. There's some evidence points that if you string them together like everything else, you can make a case for it. But like the people that string together the problems with the moon landing or whatever the case of it, not even so much problems, so much as irregularities, you can make a case out of just about anything so long as there's no rebuttal. This is what I learned from being on the wrong side of the who wrote Shakespeare thing. As I've said many times, I read a book and saw a documentary movie about Shakespeare's works having been written by Edward de Vere, 16th Earl of Oxford, and it was a very compelling case. And it was a very compelling case because there was no rebuttal. And I decided maybe I should read the rebuttal. So I read the rebuttal, and the rebuttal was much shorter than the case that it was the Earl of Oxford, because the rebuttal just simply boom, 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 boom. I remember one example in particular just really struck me really hard, and it was the people who argue that it was Edward de Vere, who of course was an aristocrat, traveled the world, right? And he'd been all around the world, and he was very rich and very, very smart apparently, and all the rest of it. Couldn't have been written by Shakespeare because Shakespeare was just a regular guy. He was a son of a wool merchant and a glove maker in Avon? No, Stratford-on-Avon. And so it couldn't have been this regular guy. It had to have been somebody uniquely, divinely gifted, and that had to be an aristocrat. So that's why people like the idea of it being written by Edward de Vere, because intellectuals really like intellectualism. And so what would better appeal to the ultimate snobs? And I confess to being one of them in this regard. That is, as far as Shakespeare goes, it is the height of literary intellectual snobbery. But in the case of Shakespeare, he's actually earned it. So anyway, they basically said that in the book about de Vere, said that that Shakespeare's daughters, he had 2 or 3 daughters, I don't remember which, 2 I think, but both of them were illiterate. And it's inconceivable that the greatest writer of all time would have had 2 illiterate daughters. And I thought, boy, that's absolutely right. It's a really compelling argument. And then you read the rebuttal, and it's like, regular women never went to school. Most men never went to school, but women never, ever went to school. It wasn't until 80 years later or whatever when it started to become a possibility that a commoner, a woman commoner, could get an actual education, learn how to read. And up until that moment, it's like, yes, the greatest playwright of all time had daughters who didn't read. It's like, no, they didn't read. Why would they? Why would they read? And it pisses off these leftist intellectuals so much that Shakespeare was a businessman, because he was a wool trader. He traded in wool. That's what a wool trader means, apparently. And he made money, and he invested money in the Globe Theater. He was one of the investing partners in the Globe Theater. He was one of the owners. He contributed plays for the Globe, which he got as he got a financial reward for. He was the Stanley of his day, says Settle Cougar, exactly. And he got rich off of it, which was inconceivable for actors and stuff and playwrights But he was a shrewd guy, and it pisses these left wingers off so much that he was a capitalist. It just could not have been written by him. Absolutely not. So there's this emotional driver that gives you a reason to want to believe something or to want to disbelieve something. And when people line up the dots in front of you and create a pathway for you to walk on that gets you towards your emotional desire, then people will follow that road, and it's very hard to shake them out of it unless you're committed to truth above feelings. And I love to admit that I was wrong about this because I can see how wrong I was and why I was wrong. Ardenum 4250 says, so what you're saying, Bill, is that William Shakespeare was Lee Harvey Oswald? That's precisely what I'm saying. Just an ordinary guy? No, not an ordinary. They were the same guy. He was clear. He was an immortal Rothschild who had developed on a trip to the Bahamas. He had discovered the fountain of youth at who was it? I went to the damn high school named after the junior high. Ponce de Leon was looking for. And as Big Blue Day points out, Jack the Ripper was the Loch Ness Monster. And you see, all these threads tie together. And I guarantee you, I guarantee you that if you put enough money in front of me or anybody else who has Eric would be great at this. He'd be really, really good at this. I'm tempted to do it. I think if I threw $500 at Eric Blake and said, make the case that William Shakespeare and Lee Harvey Oswald were the same guy, I'll bet you a clever person could do it. I bet you they could. I bet you they could find 6 or 7 things that they have in common and that were just absolutely weird and uncanny. And when you have as many moving parts as 9/11, you're going to have all kinds of coincidences, just plain coincidences. Let's see what we got here. Go get him, Coach. Oh, sorry. Got him, Coach. I always get that wrong. Got him, Coach said, Bill, wouldn't it be a better idea that USA presidents, young or old, use portable escalators rather than portable steps to enter and exit Air Force One? It's like quite a hike up them stairs to Air Force One. Yeah, the problem with portable escalators is they're bloody heavy, and I think it's probably good exercise for them. 5708 Rivera says they discovered who Jack the Ripper was through DNA and Ancestry.com, testing the victim's scarf. It was a Polish immigrant. I suspect it really wasn't. That's one line of that's one pathway of evidence, and the multiple pathways of evidence towards Charles Lechmere are almost overwhelming. So we don't know what happened to the scarf. The scarf disappeared, and we saw it reappear, but we don't know how it was contaminated. I saw somebody talking about the Shroud of Turin, which was apparently thoroughly debunked. These 30 years ago, in the late 90s or something like that. The keepers of the shroud had allowed carbon 14? I guess it would be carbon 14 dating on the shroud, and they said it goes back only to the Renaissance. But then I saw somebody say, wait a minute, the section of the shroud that they dated was the absolute outer margin, and if you look at the outer margin all the way around the shroud, you can see that it's stained. There's abrasions. The shroud was apparently flooded at some point, and they said they got all of their carbon-14 samples came from this one tiny little corner, which was the most damaged corner of the shroud. And I thought, see, that's a frickin' great counter-argument. It's a great counter-argument. Well, I worked in a carbon-14 lab. I worked for Beta Analytic down in Miami, and contamination's a real thing. So, there you go. Yeah, really. And now the guy who's leading the charge on this is claiming that the shroud is authentic, and that there are qualities to the image that don't match. I'm paraphrasing here, so I don't want to be held to this because I'm paraphrasing, but basically, what they're saying is that the image is not created by a dye or a pigment, but rather by heat damage, something like that, energy damage. I don't know, it'd be interesting. But again, that's the problem with that one pathway of evidence. The scarf. Let me see if I can remember this. I used to have the names of the 5 canonical victims by heart, and I don't. There's Eddowes. No, I'm not going to go through it again. And Capicionato points out the shroud doesn't need to be real. Indeed, it does not. That's kind of what I'm talking about by single point of evidence, right? If you were to date the center of the shroud, and find out that it goes back to 1400, it doesn't disprove the existence of Christ. But if it goes back to, first century AD, first half century AD, this is why it's a little tricky. If it can't disprove Christ by being false, it doesn't really prove him by having the dates be the same, but it is contributing evidence. So this is how you weigh all this stuff, figure it out. I missed a super chat earlier, and I just got one from Roadrunner, so let me get both of these real quick. John Ogilvy has a $10 super chat. It says, you and John Stoffel have greatly influenced the way I think about politics. Thank you. I hope part of the reason is you both have a consistent, values-based, and logical message. Well, thank you, John. I try really hard, and I'm not often wrong, but when I am, I admit it, and I'm interested in finding out why I was wrong. And the Shakespeare thing was so good about that. And then Roadrunner with a $20 super chat says, I saw a quote somewhere that the Dems are acting like a cat and President Trump has the world's largest laser pointer. Yeah. It seems that way to me sometimes too. Last Independent Thinker says, I suppose people need to believe in something, blind faith. And I'm certainly not inferring that there's any malice behind that. Not in the slightest, but I just wanted to say that prior to saying that everybody believes in something religiously, because that's how we're wired. Everybody has a religious belief in something. And I find that my most religious kind of feelings really, honestly, I know this is going to sound like a promotional ad for BillWhittle.com, but for me, the thing that I am most in mystical reverence and awe of is the United States of America, the founding of the country, and especially the Constitution. I simply never get over the fact that it was written by, real people. It's just transcendental to me. And this belief in America too, which is why it's so disgusting to see somebody like Nick Fuentes talking about who needs to leave the country. He's basically said verbatim, the Jews need to leave, they're not Americans. I can personally count 7 or 8 Jews who are far better Americans than Nick Fuentes, far more patriotic, and done far more good than the country than Nick Fuentes. And anybody who admires Hitler and Stalin, who together killed more Christians than anybody in history, has got a hard time telling me that they're basing this on their Christianity. So there you go. Yeah, he's really. It's just unseemly, man, and it's starting to ebb. I think, back to where we started with this little rant. It seems to me like Candace has just beclowned herself, and it's like an addict that needs that kind of. I've got a new revelation today. Tune in. 4 million views is $120 million a year. So she's just getting further and further and further out there. Charlie Kirk came to her in a dream. Charlie, the thing I heard today or yesterday, Charlie Kirk was a Catholic, secret closet Catholic, and was buried with a Catholic ceremony. And yeah, just keep bringing them out. If you can't produce, first it was the exploding lavalier microphone, then it was a second shooter who was shooting from almost the exact same position and who shot at the same millisecond. And then it was something else, and it was something else, so on, so on, so on. that one's especially interesting to me. I don't think that theory lasted very long. I think somebody might have explained to her that you could take the two most experienced snipers in the world and set them up with two rifles and have them both fire on a flash of light. Not a hand gesture, which is, if I do a hand gesture, that's a half a second to get my hand into position. When is it in position? You could take the two sharpest snipers in the country, and tell them to fire on the flash of a strobe light, and you would easily be able to tell that there were two shots fired from any acoustic analysis. It's just not possible. It's not possible. As Effendi says, Dinesh D'Souza's been doing yeoman's work. He has. Yeah, Dinesh has been awesome. I've interviewed him several times. I like him very much. Marisha says, Bill, did you see Glenn Beck's video about Thomas Jefferson's first draft of the Declaration in which he called for an end to slavery? It needed a unanimous vote, but was rejected by 2 southern states. He also tried overturning Virginia laws that prohibited the freeing of slaves. I didn't know about that. I sure do wish those 2 votes hadn't. I wish the 2 southern states that rejected it had gone the way of the other 5 southern states that made up the 7 states of the Deep Confederacy, the first 7 states to go out for the Confederacy. If they had, I just can't imagine how different this country would have been if it turned out that that the country would have been founded without slavery. That would have been a very different world. Anyway, last independent thinker. I'm curious about this. Genuinely curious. This is not a challenge in any way. But he writes, I grew up in a remote environment with absolutely no religion. I didn't even know what religion was until my early teens. So my question is, serious question is, did you or have you got, is there anything in your life that you have a religious feelings about? Is there anything that fills you with a sense of just wonder and sort of oneness and like the complete loss of self, just the sheer like magnificence of it, this kind of transcendental awe of something? I'm really curious to know if you do or not. I would imagine you probably would, but you never know. Anyway, so we'll see. Let's go and get our questions down, why don't we? Oh, there you go. Woody Fool says, Wonder is seeing Orion at 3 a.m. last night in Wyoming. I'll bet that's a really good sky, man. I'll bet it's just really, really good sky. Saddle Cougar says, Mr. Wood, it's taken me a long time to work up the courage to join your stream again. I'm ashamed I'm part of a fandom that incubated the murders of Charlie Kirk and the attempted murders of ICE agents in Texas. I've started to project to atone for my inaction. I'm very angry at myself for avoiding this responsibility and to shine a spotlight on the evils within. Is there any way I can contact you for some advice along the way? Yes, you can reach me at info@billwhittle.com, and don't be too hard on yourself, buddy. Just the fact that that you're aware enough, to think that you might have been in error. You're not guilty of anything. You're not responsible for anything. Everybody everybody's wrong at some point or another. I had more than my share of being wrong about things until all of a sudden I just got the picture. And since then, my record's been, I think, pretty solid. And if it's not, you will let me know. Rusha Dark actually, we've had a differing of opinion more oftentimes than not, but I will say this. I don't know how long ago now, it was a couple of months ago, maybe even more than that, but Marusha Dark actually made an argument that was so good that I just realized, no, I was wrong about that. It was about the whether or not the Supreme Court or whatever can overturn constitutional law, something like that. And I thought it over, and I thought, nope, that's I was wrong about that, and he was right. All right, let's see what we got here, which doesn't hurt at all. And about AI too. Yeah, well, you were right about. First, I was wrong about AI, and you were right. Then, you were right, and I was wrong. And now I think it's come back to me being right and you being wrong. But that's what we're here for. I was certainly wrong about my assumptions about it. But since then, I've had some interesting discussions. All right, here we go. We got a Marusha Dark, got an Eli Nor, got a Capital G Geek, and Eric Blake. Braden Higby, another Marusha Dark. Okay, we can do all those. I'm just trying to see something here. Okay, so just real quick, last independent thinker says, okay, I grew up in the middle of nowhere in Australia. I love Australia. I was down there for 3 months. I had a great time. Did not even bother with reading the Bible until my late 40s, and I have no regrets as I got to look at it with my adult mind. Was there anything in, when you say the middle of nowhere Australia, I'm assuming somewhere in the outback, right? Somewhere away from the coast? Because that is a lonely place. Australia, I just love Australia. I love it. I love the people there. I had such a good time there. And really, 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 really love the people there. And you know, the Australia is almost exactly the same size as the United States, got a tenth of the population, because there's no rivers there, man. There's no rivers. That's the thing. It's just it's the size of the continental U.S., but there's no water in the interior. And what is the number? It's something like 90. It's worse. It's more dramatic even than Canada. What's the percentage of Canadians who live within 50 or 100 miles of the U.S. border? Is it something like 80% or something? In Australia, it's something like 95, 96, 97% of the population lives within 20 miles of the coast. The interior is just, it's just, as air as rock, man. That seems to be it. Which is just astonishing. If you've ever driven across America, just driving across Texas is enough to make you think this is just never going to end. Hey, Bill, can you recommend a good Halloween movie? My favorite is Good Boy. I hadn't seen Good Boy. Trying to think what really scared me. Speaking of Australia, by the way, actually, last independent thinker again, actually there was an engineer who wanted to dam and connect rivers, but the Greens and the government sat on their hands. Congratulations, Greens and governments. If you guys ever want to really get, like, just take a spear through the heart, man, just do a little research on the origin of Waltzing Matilda. That is the most heartbreaking frickin' story I have heard ever. I think everybody with half an education knows Waltzing Matilda. But when I got into what the lyrics mean and what the story was, I just thought, oh my God, this is just heartbreaking. Greening the Outback would turn that country into a powerhouse. The Witch is a scary movie. He's my favorite director now, Robert Egger. I loved The Witch. I loved The Lighthouse. Not as huge a fan of The Norseman, and I loved Nosferatu. Thought they were great. Anyway, yeah, Waltzing Matilda. Again, last independent thinker says Australia is terraforming dream. Just add water. Test case for Mars. You know, that's a profoundly good. Coffee Shinato on the other channel said maybe terraform Australia before Mars. It'd be a damn good place to try some things out. You know, I mean, if it doesn't work, you're gonna get some letters from some lizards. But that seems to be about it. Man, it's got to be a hell of a drive across the outback. It's got to be just unreal. Okay, anyway, back to the questions here. Bill, I shared this with Razorfist and Tom Bilyeu. He's good not to share with the Stratus. It's too good not to share with the Strata Launch 2. You need to show chat on the official White House webpage for the ballroom construction. If you scroll down to the timeline, it roasts Clinton, Obama, and Biden. You need to see it for yourself. This is 100% real. Enjoy. This is what I voted for. I think not to show chat. You need to show chat. Don't we show chat? Oh, you mean record it in the stream, so that it's recorded. I see. Uh, the right angle we did, um, uh, it was Scott's, I think. It was about firing no, it wasn't a right angle. I did a call in yesterday for Carl Higbee on Newsmax, and they were talking about Trump having fired the six-person board. Um, so, okay. Anyway, um, I don't really. Hang on. Oh, history of the. I see. Okay, okay, I see. Let me go back. I didn't quite get it. Um, so we talk about the major events of the building as the addition of the South Portico, North Portico, West Wing, Oval Office. 1909 remodeled and expanded the West Wing, which included construction of the first. I thought the Oval Office was much older than that. I thought the Oval Office went back uh, to the construction of the building. Um, 1913 under President Woodrow Wilson, addition of the Rose Garden, addition of the East Wing, total reconstruction, briefing room, Bill Clinton scandal, Muslim Brotherhood visit, tennis pavilion. That's ugly. Sorry, Melania, that's just not really good looking. Cocaine discovery. Hang on, I'll do a screenshot. Oh my Lord in heaven. Trump is the greatest troll of all time. Of all time. He's the GOAT. Um, I can't show more than. Well, one of them is a picture of Lewinsky, and then there's these four, of which three are relevant. Hang on. This is the history of the White House. God, when he's on, he's just fantastic. All right, it's going to be tedious. Let me try and get this thing in there and take a look. Yep, here's our glorious history. Uh, Waltzing Matilda, come waltzing Matilda. Muslim Brotherhood visit. There's Obama in the outfit tennis pavilion. Cocaine discovered, and the Trans Day of Visibility. Man, that's just absolutely, just priceless, priceless. All right. We're not worthy of you, Donald. We're not worthy, I tell you. Okay, here we go. Next, Eli Noor. No need to read out loud. Oh, no worries, Eli, at all. It's just he basically was talking about the building the Air Force Base in Qatar, and I wasn't trying to come down on you at all. I was just trying to show how easy it is to do that. I had a number of occasions where people stopped me, and I mean at the last second. We're just about to go on air at PJTV with something that just looked really good, and it turned out it was just nope. It's just plain false or whatever. I remember one of them very clearly was like Obama was like had his hand out to shake. This is right after he was elected the first time and inaugurated, and he had his hand out to shake. There's a long line of military guys, and the headline was that the military refused to shake his hand, and I was going to run with that and do a story on it. And I was like, I had like the papers, and I was sitting in there, and this super liberal who worked in the control room basically did me the favor of coming over and saying it's not true. This is the reason. Showed me an article, and oh man, that was close. And I stepped on that landmine. No worries, Eli. Everything's totally cool, man. And I love having big discussions on this. So, Richard Dark says someone on Twitch suggested naming it the Big Ballroom. I love it. Oh, the Big Balls Room. Yeah, sure. Okay. Big Ballroom will work for me, too. Um, There's some talk about whether it's going to be named the Charlie Kirk Ballroom. Okay, it's fine. Capital G Geek. Greetings from the swamps of Northern Virginia. Are you familiar with the term enshittification? I'm not, but it's one of those beautiful words whose meaning I understand instantly. I remember the first term I heard anybody say virtue signal, and I thought, got it. Got it. It's a term coined by Cory Doctorow, initially describing how apps are good, but become garbage over time. It's true. Every time they do an update, I like it less. I was recently reminded of this when my new denim jacket's pockets were way too far back, placed on the side seams at 3 and 6 o'clock. Someone saved less than $1 to make those pockets unusable. Looks like all the speed advancements in computers has been completely offset by inefficiencies in the software. Interesting. A Zoomer who runs ConfederateShop.com has a video about the Stonewall Jackson Memorial that was removed, desecrated, and is now being displayed in L.A. What, is a war trophy for the left? Is that what that is? Sean Farash has a new Trump drug boat song to the tune of Gilligan's Island. I don't know if you've seen Sean Farash. He's frickin' marvelous. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play it, and I just play it on the speakers. And that way they won't see it. They'll probably strike it, but in any event. I haven't heard this yet. We're going to hear it together. Sean Farash, if you haven't known, he's like really new. I've only seen him for the last 2 or 3, 4 weeks, something like that. But he does a frickin' unbelievable Donald Trump and Donald Trump. No, that's me. Hang on. I just played on the speakers. That way they won't see it. How do I do this? I haven't heard this yet. We're going to hear it together. Sean Farash, if you haven't known, is like really new. I've only seen him for the last 2 or 3, 4 weeks, something like that. But he does a frickin' unbelievable Donald Trump and Donald Trump. That's me. Just played on the speakers. It's okay. I had the I was going to play this, and I'm still going to play it, but I had the speakers up, and I was listening to one of the same thing here too. Oh wait. All right, here we go. Where'd it go? This is Sean Farash doing his impersonation of Donald Trump.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started on the Venezuelan coast aboard this narco ship. The fake news said they were fishermen, but they were Tren de Aragua thugs, heading to the United States with a boat full of drugs. A boat full of drugs. Bad hombres decided to F around, so we blew them out of the water. We unleashed our secret weapon, and we dropped Katie Porter. We dropped Katie Porter. The narco boats were annihilated. Now the fish are high as hell. They got a free meal when the USA chummed the water with the cartels. And I got to look very well, by the way, with Davy Jones. You may have heard of him, Davy Jones. And he has a locker. And anybody who tries to sail drugs into our country, they're getting a one-way trip to Davy Jones' locker. That much I can tell you. Thank you for your attention to this matter.
The guy, Sean Farash, is very, very, very good, and Trump is. There are times when Trump is just. Like I said, I just don't think we deserve him. Okay, moving on. Here we go. Eric Blake. Tonight, the case of the electoral elation. Here's hoping this question won't mysteriously vanish like my and Roadrunner's questions on Tuesday. So, Bill, looks like our side is riding high electorally, not just here, but internationally. Javier Milei's party has dominated the Argentinian midterms. Afuera, yes, we talked about that on our backstage show. And the newly elected PM of Japan is a staunch conservative who's all about border security and rebuilding the Japanese military. Also a woman, by the way, Edith, feminist. Yeah, she's terrific. And the new prime minister, this is not Eric, it's me, new prime minister of Italy is a woman, and she's very impressive too. And Margaret Thatcher was awesome. It's not that I don't think women can be. Sorry, let me bring that around. That's a little better. It's not that I don't think women can be good leaders of countries. Margaret Thatcher was a great leader, and the ones I just mentioned. It's just that we managed to put up left wingers who are. I mean, it's not. the only person I could think who would have been maybe worse for America than Kamala Harris would have been Tim Walz. So in any event. Meanwhile, back in the States, the gubernatorial elections are looking very promising. New Jersey race is way too close for Democrat comfort. And the California race, Bill, as you may already know, it's your state, but behold, Republican takes lead in new California governor poll. Republican candidate Steve Hilton is very narrowly ahead in the latest poll from Emerson College. Well, that's because Katie Porter was forced into destroying her candidacy, and she was forced into it by her character. Nice, ain't it? Barry Weiss has proven more heroic than we could imagine with the results of the Katie Porter interview. And lest we forget, all of this admitted government shutdown that for once hasn't hurt Republicans in the public eye. In fact, just the opposite. In short, Bill, all the doomers can buzz off, wouldn't you say? We're winning, and that's all there is to it. I think we've been winning ever since, since the 2024 election. And this is why the whole thing with Candace and Tucker and Fuentes is so... it's not even disturbing. It doesn't really bother me. It just irritates me, which is not really the same thing. It's like we should be reveling in this. We should just be basking in it. But no, not enough drama. So yeah, we're winning like crazy, Eric. We'll see what happens in the midterms. But as I said on the Backstage show, where Javier Milei's win came up, I think it said maybe it wasn't the back. Might have been Scott's regular episode, for all I remember now. In any event, it's good to know that human nature, at least in the case of Argentina, is, well, we voted against this, but then we saw the results and we liked it, so now we voted for it. And that seems to be, pretty cool. So, hip hip hooray. Let's see if we can keep doing it. I'm feeling good about it, though, real good. Braden Higby, howdy from Idaho. Almost said Ohio. Big mistake. It's my favorite place in the world. I love Idaho. Love it. I had no idea what I was in for. I thought Idaho was going to be just flat land with nothing but, like potato trees everywhere. And when I got to Coeur d'Alene, I just couldn't believe it. Have you ever heard of the Greater Idaho Project? Essentially, it's a bunch of conservative counties in Oregon are done with being ruled by commies in Portland and working to join my great state. Yes, that would be the western part of Oregon, and I've heard that western part of Washington is thinking about it too. Later phases of the project would see counties from Washington and Northern California join Greater Idaho. That would be frickin' awesome. My understanding is that this is politically easier to achieve than separate statehood. I can't think that it's been done before, but it's possible. You think the consolidation of rural counties into larger voting blocks and the subsequent creation of liberal city-states would help rebalance federal power? Yes. I can't wait until the USA is subsumed by the UCI, the United Counties of Idaho. Joking mostly. When the Democrats are so furious about Republicans' so-called gerrymandering, but what they're really furious about is rebelling against their gerrymandering. There are states like Massachusetts, I think, has 40% of the population went for Trump, 0 representatives in the House of Representatives. I think the same is for New Mexico, 0 representatives. That's liberal gerrymandering. I think that congressional districts ought to be determined by latitude and longitude. That's the only fair thing I can think of. It really, I can't think of another way to do it. Here's a super chat from the Kurt Cheney saying, Bill, I've watched you for about 15 years, and your steely-eyed missile man speech on Benghazi changed my life, the last lever turning myself into a man. I was on fire for that. That was at the 2012 David Horowitz Restoration Weekend, and it was Saturday night, so it was 2 days after Mitt Romney had lost the 2012 election. And I did not have notes. I was emceeing the night, and somebody who was running the event, great guy named Mike Finch, said, I looked. I said, What's this empty slot here right at the beginning?" He said, "I thought you might want to do 15 minutes." I said, "Yeah, I can figure out something, I'm sure." And I got up there and I don't know, man. I channeled George Patton and Curtis LeMay and all the rest of those guys. It was really kind of fun. So thank you for that. It was nice. Yeah, Idaho's awesome. Don't take in too much at once. Don't take in more. Don't bite off more than you can digest. And digest. Yeah. Because if you get flooded by too many people too fast, it's gonna Californicate the place. We're back to Marisha to close this thing out. We're zooming tonight. Topic: witch hunts. Bill and I have been recently interested in so-called mass formation psychosis lately. Yes, I know it's a real term people use, but personally I've always hated the phrase. Seems too wordy compared to good old-fashioned mass hysteria. Yeah, it sounds good. I agree. I'm sure George Carlin would agree about the soft language. Setting that aside, I wanted to ask you, given that it's Halloween tomorrow, what are your thoughts on the satanic panic? Tangentially related, I'm old enough to remember that before J.K. Rowling was being canceled by the woke left for turf views, she was being canceled by the religious right for teaching children dark satanic witchcraft through the fictional magic in Harry Potter, sort of modern-day Socrates corrupting the youth. So let me just come out and say what I'm going to come out and say. I obviously have opinions about things, and people have different opinions about things, and this is just my opinion about things. I personally find that that people who think that things like Halloween and Harry Potter are going to make their children into demons, I find that to be overreacting, personally. To me, this is somewhat akin to, well, there's certainly a group of people who feel that way about Santa Claus too, that it's pulling, it's not the reason for the season and all of that. But my opinion on these things is that they are clearly not maliciously evil. Halloween and Harry Potter and Santa Claus, you can make and I've heard people make cases against all three of them, but none of them are maliciously intended, and I personally love all three of them. I'm not a huge Harry Potter fan, but I mean it's a magnum opus. I really think it's probably second after the Lord of the Rings trilogy, or not just Lord of the Rings, including The Hobbit and Silmarillion and so on. I think J.R.R. Tolkien is unparalleled in I don't think there's any question about this. He's unparalleled in creating an alternative universe, and I think he's probably the second best writer after Shakespeare. But the satanic panic was, I want to say it was in the late 80s. And I think the satanic panic was somewhat related to the rise of the televangelists. If you weren't there was a period when Jimmy Swaggart and Jim and Tammy Faye Baker and so on were just everywhere before the internet. We all had to watch TV, and there was like late night TV, and it was a lot of them. I think they did a lot of damage, actually, personally, especially when Jim and Tammy Faye and plus Swaggart were proven in court and admitted to being just frauds, just taking people's money as frauds. But back to the question, there was a genuine hysteria in America for a period of a couple years where people were seeing satanic cults everywhere, and that children were disappearing off the streets and all that stuff. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be looking into children disappearing off the streets, needless to say, but that was hysteria. That was mass hysteria. I don't see anything objectionable to Harry Potter and Santa Claus and Halloween. I think if you've got good parents and if it bothers you on religious terms, I think if you've got good solid Christian parents, I don't think Halloween is going to turn you away from the Son of God. Uh, I think I think they're all in good fun, frankly, and that's kind of my criteria for these things. Now, there's some things that are well intentioned and still do damage, but I don't think Halloween does any damage. There's anybody who ever lived through Halloween, the golden age of Halloween and Christmas. We're past peak golden age for those two. But during, I've lived in, I don't know how I got this lucky, but I just grew up in the golden age of everything. I just happened to be at the right place at the right time for everything. And the golden age of Christmas to me was in the late 60s, early 70s when toys really started getting cool before, electronics took over. And Halloween right around that same time, maybe a little bit later, like early 70s to mid 70s. That was when it was just, I mean, I remember for 2 or 3 years, well, certainly for 4 or 5, 6 years of my life, Christmas was the most important day of the year. And then as I got a little bit older, it got to be like Halloween was the best day of the year. And that golden age of Halloween, man, I just remember that. I remember that fake blood, kind of that red syrupy fake blood that you would use, and the vampire teeth, and all that stuff. And I remember those. God, if you have never experienced these, you won't know what I'm talking about. But if you have, you will know what I'm talking about. And that is the taste. I don't know what they put inside those wax lips. But if you ever had those wax lips, they were just wax, big lips, and they were filled with this red liquid, and you'd bite on them, and if you didn't bite too hard, you could walk around with big lips. But when you eventually bit into this stuff, it was undoubtedly just nothing but raw sugar. Another 3 grains of sugar would have just crystallized. But God, I love those things. They were just so bloody delicious. I used to just chew them up and just spit the wax out. They were grand. Mercia Dark says, I've had several encounters this month when I asked someone, so are you excited for Halloween? And they said, no, I'm a Christian. No, I'm a Muslim. Hey, man, I completely respect that. I respect it. That's their business. I'm not telling them that they're wrong at all. I just don't feel that way. Popeye cigarettes, Lady Hawk says. Now, things have degraded over time, but this is not a but argument, just the opposite. These things are candy cigarettes, and someone was kind enough to send them to me. And I don't know what's inside these things, but it's not what was inside them when I was a kid, because these things are just chalk strips with a little bit of red painted on the side, and had none of the taste that the original ones did. Those things are, I mean, I actually love them. I'm so happy somebody sent me the box. It was just great. I love getting it, and I love having it handy because I keep it in reach, But these things are, you can't put them in your mouth. They're just, it's not edible. It's not for human consumption. Ardenim 4250 says, I'm so glad I'm old enough that my parents let me go out on Halloween without them. Yes. Now, I will say this. It's interesting because, Halloween wasn't really huge in Russia. And when Natasha came here, we did the first couple years and we loved it. I got dressed up in an outfit and sat on a chair outside and pretended to be, like a stuffed guy and jump when the kids were coming, Kids are not as gullible as they used to be. They started poking me with sticks before they that would really have a chance to scare them. In fact, I remember as a kid going out on Halloween, we often went out while it was still light out. And going out on Halloween while it's daylight out is just wrong, man. But anyway, so she came, we did the Halloween at home a couple times. And then the first couple years we, now this is unique to where I live. I really think that's actually not true. There's one other place I know of for certain. The Halloween party in West Hollywood, Los Angeles is memorable. West Hollywood is one of the gayest neighborhoods in the country in terms of percentage of the population. And I took Natasha down there, and I thought, is Natasha going as Yeoman Rand? My God, that's a thought. I got a costume to buy. Wow. But we went to to the West Hollywood Halloween party, and I thought she was going to be really appalled, and she was shocked, no question, because Russia is a very, very, very traditional conservative place. There are no openly gay people. There's no pot smoking. None of this. None of it. And we went there, and I thought, oh God, what the hell am I doing in this country? But she actually had a really, really wonderful time, and her primary reaction was that she thought it was just wonderful that everybody was so not even just free in the kind of liberty, Constitution free, but just emotionally free and mentally free to to go out and do foolish things like that. The thing that I think is my favorite thing about her is that she has yet to get over. She's been here almost 10 years now, past 9, so we're coming up on 10, and she still can't get over how nice everybody is, and it makes me happy every time I see it. Every time somebody compliments her, in a grocery aisle or whatever, she just can't believe it, and it makes me proud and happy, and makes up for some of the healthcare issues, the healthcare system here in America, which are not good, and were very good in Russia. Although I don't know if it's worth the government to get, but they're charging us an arm and a leg here privately, and we get garbage in the emergency rooms anyway. Anyway, back and forth, but all of this to say that she really liked it, and it's bizarre. And the only place that's even close to it, and in fact exceeds it, is in terms of weirdness, is Key West, which is the weirdest place in America by a wide margin. The Conch Republic is a strange place to be. The distance between Miami and Key West is pretty close to the distance between Miami and Orlando. Not quite as far, but it's a 3-4 hour drive to get all the way down there. And down in Key West, it is a very strange culture. I got hired to do a documentary on. Is it America though? No, it's not. Cafecinato. It's not even close to America. Well, it is close to America, but it's offshore. I did a documentary. We were there for 2 weeks getting ready, and it was on Fantasy Fest, which is their Halloween party, which is very, 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 very strange. Very, very strange. But fascinating. I mean, you had what we did an interview with this gay couple that were in their 60s, probably late 60s. These two men, and they made these masks what's that art style I'm thinking of? Just Cirque du Soleil kind of things. Incredible masks, just unbelievable. They were hundreds and hundreds of dollars each, handmade, every one of them. They were fantastic, beautiful. And so there's all of this creativity, and then there's all of this perversion as well. And it's like, these things kind of go hand in hand, I guess, more cases than not. Andrew DeLay says, I get so few kids in my neighborhood, which is a bit of a disappointment. Weather is nice this year, so maybe it'll be better. I've noticed our neighborhood is really, really down in terms of houses that are decorated. So I think it's going to be a slow week, slow Halloween. And then Gotham Coach said, did Bill ever go trick-or-treating as a kid? What was his favorite costume? Did Bill ever use a pillowcase to trick-or-treat? No, my favorite, masquerade, yeah. My favorite Halloween costume by far, the one I remember best by far, was Flipper. And that is such a strange thing that I have to find it now. I have to. How do you go out as Flipper? Flipper the dolphin. I was Flipper. That was my favorite Halloween costume. There it is. The internet is unbelievable. This is what is so freaking great about the internet. Yes, Flipper here, and I found a picture of it first time out. Oh my God! Talk about a memory bomb here. 1964. It only came out in 1 year. It was 1964, and I love this. I can't tell you what a dopamine hit this is for me. All right, so here's the Halloween costume, and I know what year it was. It was 1964 because it only came out 1 year. I was 5 years old, and this is what a Flipper Halloween costume looked like. Now that one looks like it's been used to murder a child in, but nevertheless, you get the idea. Hang on a second there, YouTube. I'm coming. Yeah, so this is how you can do Halloween as a Flipper. Yeah, that definitely looks like it's been used to. Oh, come on, come on, come on, come on! God, you bloody thing! All right, to hell with you. Do it again. Hang on, I'll enlarge it. Here it comes. Yeah, that's a Flipper, and pay no attention to the blood stains. But you can see that they put eye holes. Where one is his eye, and the other one they just put in his mouth. What the hell, whatever. But that's a Flipper. Here's a much cleaner picture. Should have gone with this. Hang on. I loved Flipper. I loved it. And I lived in Bermuda, and I kept telling my dad, I never saw a dolphin in Bermuda. We didn't have dolphins in Bermuda. I loved Flipper so much. And I kept saying to my dad, I saw them when we would come and visit America. They had if you can believe this, they had a dolphin in a tank that was about the size, certainly no bigger than a semi-trailer, and probably about 2/3 of the size of a semi-trailer, and they kept a dolphin in that tank at I think it was at Dorney Park in Pennsylvania, and I lost my mind when I saw a dolphin. And then when we finally moved, I just brought the same picture, an idiot. Hang on a second. And when I finally saw dolphins for real, it was the first day we moved to Florida from Bermuda, and my dad had gotten a house on the bay, and we were sitting there, and it was sunset, and it was a first experience of Florida. We had our own pool, and everything was screened in because we had yet to learn about the mosquitoes. But we learned that real quick. But right there out in the bay, we just saw these two fins, and I freaking lost my mind. It made me so happy. I went back and ate a whole box of Space Food sticks. That's how happy it made me. I love those fudge Space Food sticks. Modern kids are just so deprived. It just makes me sad. It makes me want to cry. So that's a Flipper Halloween costume. That's my favorite costume. I want is Flipper. Longer Latch says, I always had to make my own costumes. I like that more than trick-or-treating. Making your own costume is epic. But this was the golden age of Halloween, when you would just buy these awesome costumes, and they'd be like these great, like the Flipper thing. It'd be like silk pajamas, real thin, and they had a little string you tie them around at the back, and you are good to go. You'd be Batman or whatever floated your boat. But I remember telling my dad, look, Dad, we live here right by, we got a hotel on the ocean. We could have a dolphin. We could have a dolphin here, and I could go out snorkeling with the dolphin every day, and it would be a great, incredible. This is me starting to use my adult brain. Just think about what an incredible attraction it would be, Dad. For the hotel and everything. If you had your own dolphin, and it's like I take care of the dolphin. It's like, no, we're not getting a dolphin, Bill. You bastard. I've never forgiven him, and I never shall. Never. Eternal enemies, you and I. Where did my things go? Okay, here's one of them. Anyway, that's who I it was my favorite Halloween costume. Was Flipper. And on that note, I don't think you're going to beat that. Dress up as a Victorian era butcher delivery man and tell everybody you're being Jack the Ripper. I show up there, as a butcher delivery man with a big cart and white apron smeared with blood and just a regular looking guy. And they say, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm Charles Lechmere." "Who are you?" I might. One second. I just might have. Oh, there's my bean. I miss my bean. He's a good bean, that boy. He was a good bean. Let's see. Back here someplace. I can't stop singing the Flipper theme now. Hang on. I know I got a picture somewhere. I think I do anyway. Come on, baby. Come on. You can do it. You can do it. You can do it. Wow. Maybe not. Try a little bit more. Shouldn't be this hard. Jamie, pull up that Halloween picture of me and Natasha in this piece. Oh, here we go. Yeah, Natasha took this picture. Did I have? I had a different one. I had a better one. I thought it was the next year. Maybe not. I'll show you that. It's the first year. Here you go. This is me in West Hollywood in let's say 2018 maybe. Wow, it's a big picture. Hang on, YouTube. I'm a coming. Yep. Yeah, I was a lot more spaceman-y the next year. I got it tweaked out, but just don't have that picture here. Hang on a second. YouTube's coming. Here it comes, baby. I remember I had gained a lot of weight somewhere around then. I remember saying I'm America's first fatronaut. But I had all the details. It's hard to see. Everything was black, but yeah, I was a spaceman right there. I was pretty cool. I'm with you on that one. Vastly Right says, I had way more fun Halloween as an adult in the 80s going to bars in costume. Yeah, that was a fun time, man. The fun time to go to clubs Halloween. So on that note, I guess we'll get out of here. And hope everybody has a great time. Roadrunner wants to know, is Rocky Horror considered a Halloween movie? Good question. Asking for a friend. Yeah, I think it might be. I actually really love that movie. I'm sure it doesn't hold up, but once again, just like I was saying, I just always been in the right place at the right time. I can't explain it. Just before I tee this up, to let you know, when I was a limo driver, and when I was in college, in 1980, I wasn't watching the Olympics. I wasn't watching sports. I was just I just come back in. I'd walked in the door, and everybody was sitting around the TV. I said, "What's going on?" It's like the U.S. is playing the Soviet Union for the semifinals in the Olympics, and I watched them. I watched Team USA beat the Soviets in real time, and then 8 years later, I was driving a limousine, and I just come back from a trip, and I walk into the dispatch office, and I look up, and it's like game one of the Dodgers in the World Series. So what's going on? It's 2 outs, bottom of the ninth, bases loaded. Kirk Gibson is up, and he's lame. He can't run, so he either hits a home run or the game is over and the Dodgers lose. Well, this could be interesting. Real time, just like that. So anyway, I watched the Rocky Horror Picture Show when it was brand new, when everybody was doing things for the first time. They were throwing rice for the first time. They were doing the flashlights and stuff at the beginning. But even a year later, it had been done, every week, so 50, 60 times. And by the time I went back a second time, everybody was just saying the lines to the show, which is not what I had experienced. But the first time I was there, and they were throwing the rice, and yeah, say it, and he's got no neck, and the Janet Weiss, and I see you tremble with, I see you quiver with anticipation. Say it. And we did, and everybody got up and did the time warp, and the band sang. The band played time warp during the football games, which we were 0-10-1 that first year. 0-10-1. It was great, man. It was absolutely fantastic. In any event, that's our Halloween show for this year. Thank you for all the support and everything. You fine, wonderful people. It's been great to be here, and the show's made possible by the members at BillWhittle.com, who really keep the thing going. And thank you for the kind words about Natasha. She is slowly recovering, but she got hurt real bad, and she's hurting a lot. So it's she's taking it like a champion. She's just a soldier, man. She's just great. So that'll do it for this edition of the Stratosphere Lounge, and we will see you guys on Monday with Stratosphere Studio. Real quick, I overreacted to the. Shocked. I know you must be shocked to hear that I overreacted to something. I overreacted to the space whales thing because I was really trying to do something original, and I hadn't seen that episode of Eshkoa. And I realized that if I'm just a lot more selective about taking shots out, it was a couple of the big heavy things that looked like the space whales. The other things looked a lot more alien, and I'll take it in that direction. As you were telling me, that's when I started to realize I was probably overreacting. A couple, Ahsoka, no, whatever, I don't care enough. Ahsoka, yeah, I don't care. Once I saw the whales flying into space, I thought, this is the dumbest thing I ever saw. And then, when I was explaining to Natasha how bummed out I was that everybody was referencing space whales, I watched another clip, and then I realized, no, the space whales don't just go into space. They go into space, and then they go into hyperspace. Their butts light up with like line of purple lights, and off they go. This isn't science anything. This is just plain dumb. This is Spore Drive, the cry that destroyed dilithium crystals across the universe. Dumb. And anyway, that's that. All right, so thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys on Monday, and until then, don't fall under any under the sway of any wooden conservatives. All right, see you later. All right, guys, YouTube, here we go. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you Monday.